Before that, Sir Kier Starmer has urged Rishi Sunak to put politics aside and put patients before non-doms in order to fix the NHS. The statement is the latest in what many expect to be a vitriolic and fiercely fought general election campaign. Many interpreted the Labour leader's comments as an attack, a thinly veiled attack on the Prime Minister's wife, Akshata Murthy, who famously, of course, has non-dom tax status herself. Last week, the Conservatives took aim at Labour with the now infamous picture of a BBC presenter giving the camera the finger. Well, let's speak now with the political commentator, Peter Spencer. Peter, always a pleasure to have you on the show. It feels like things are going to get very...
Sorry, what?
It feels like things are going to get very, very dirty, Peter, in this election. A report out over the weekend that the Tories have been raking through Kier Starmer's history as a director of public prosecutions, unearthing cases back as far as 2000 when he opposed the extradition of al-Qaeda terrorists with a £1 million legal aid bill and this non-dom tax status thing. Most people are saying that's a thinly guarded attack on Rishi Sunak's wife. Things are going to get pretty savage, aren't they? Is that the right way to do it, or is that simply not British?
I don't think it will endear itself to the electorate when it actually comes to it, because it feels too introspective. Somehow all the politicians seem to be doing is tearing chunks out of one another and, I don't know, whatever, cutting them into small pieces, feeding them to birds or whatever, instead of addressing their everyday concerns, of which there are a vast number. Now, to address specifically the question of putting patients before non-dom status, yeah, it's a jolly handy stick for beating Sunak with, given that, as you rightly say, Martin, Sunak's own wife benefited from these arrangements for a considerable length of time, and Sunak is richer than the king, and blah blah. So it goes on, But what Sunak's plan, Starmer's plan is that if you abolish the non-dom status completely, you bring in an extra $3 billion revenue, a third of which could be spent on paying overtime to people in hospitals, thus enabling operating theatres to function 7 days a week instead of effectively 5, and thus reduce NHS waiting lists. And it has to be said on this front that Sunak is vulnerable, because you remember a year ago he said he was going to cut NHS waiting lists. Well, they have shrunk a bit, true, but they're still 500,000 higher than they were when he made the promise. So it's a little bit like the Rwanda Stop the Boats pledge. Could do better.
Yeah, and Peter, Rishi's wife pays about 30 grand a year, and Labour are claiming she dodges or doesn't pay tax legally. Of course, it is a legal thing. She is able to potentially avoid 20 million in UK tax. A lot of people will think that's unfair, but my point is, if you're attacking somebody's wife, like, no matter what you think about Margaret Thatcher, she always said, when you attack the individual, it shows that you ran out of ideas to attack them with. And it's the same for the Tories if they're going for Starmer on his history as the DPP. Is it a sign they just ran out of ideas?
Well, I mean, there is a great problem here that most certainly the Prime Minister made all those pledges a year ago, and to the best of my knowledge, none of them have actually come to fruition, apart from cutting inflation, which was widely predicted to happen anyway. And so what has he got to say that's new? Well, not a lot, frankly, because he's still, though, he's stuck in this cleft stick that people have heard it all before and they're going to hear it all again. And I come back to it, that there is that sense that this is a Westminster bubble trying to puncture itself instead of addressing the stuff which really does impact on everybody's everyday life. And it's not greatly surprising that the opinion polls are so gloomy, or one could say ghastly, one could say catastrophic from the point of view of the Conservative Party, because they've been in power for 13 years, during which time living standards have stagnated, if not fallen back. Likewise, the state of the economy, and there is that widespread sense that frankly, we've had enough of this lot. Let's give the other side a chance.
And Peter, briefly, if we could, in America, politics is savage. The TV adverts go straight for the throat. They go for Joe Biden's capabilities. Donald Trump, of course, is mercilessly attacked in short blast video adverts. Do you think in Britain we've played Queensberry rules too long? Maybe it's time for the gloves to come off and go for the throat over here, spice it up a bit. Or is that just not the way we should play things this side of the pond?
I don't think they should be played that way anywhere in the world, to be perfectly honest. When I listen to, I get my head around some of Trump's rhetoric and, this thing about immigrants poisoning the blood of the Americans. And there's something, an echo of Adolf Hitler's rhetoric there. And there's something, to my mind, fundamentally dystopian about the way American politics is moving at present. And Trump does look like the front runner to win the next election, certainly to get the nomination from the grand old party's side, and I think there's something quite chilling about that. Link it with the fact that only today he said, "Oh yeah, well Al Capone was a great guy." Well, I mean, what planet is he on? No, to answer your question, Martin, we do not want to